We'll go ahead and get started here. I want to welcome everybody to this afternoon's session. We have Luann Warner, Deputy Director with Overseas Cooperative Development Center. Is that correct?
Council.
Council. My apologies.
Lots of letters in there.
OCDC. And so I'm going to hand it over to Luann, and thank you, Luann, for your time and grace.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and probably my worst nightmare to follow Jessica and Gordon in talking. So bear with me. I will try to keep this exciting. Have some fun planned for the next hour or so. So good afternoon to all. That's right. I have my pointer here. Maybe it's going to work for me this time. Oh, Nelly. I'll do it this way, and maybe he'll.
I believe it's a PDF. You have to scroll it down.
We tested it before.
You want to go full screen?
Well, I tested it before and this worked, but now the page down's not working. I swear it worked when it tests. I mean, this is like true like technology. Even like the page down. All right. It's like completely frozen.
This talking frame.
Maybe it's where the mouse is.
Yep.
Ooh. Maybe try that. All right. Okay. I tried to do something. There we go. I had to click on it because I think when we open Zoom, I tried to be fancy and use Canva. Like it's a new tool I use. But like, yeah, I just couldn't sync it. And when I tried to turn it from Canva to a PowerPoint, like it was like all bold and fonts rough. So I'm just going to PDF it. I tried. So this is me, Luann Werner. I'm an international cooperative development professional, passionate about using my cooperative knowledge, management skills, and network to promote effective international cooperative development. As you heard, I am the Deputy Executive Director of OCDC. I actually studied, telling a gentleman here at Morehead State, social work. And then from there, I did the Peace Corps, fell in love with it, wanted to be a Peace Corps volunteer the rest of my life, just get paid for it. So I came back, I got my master's in sustainable development. And so I was kind of late to the cooperative game. I ended up getting hired at Land O'Lakes in the International Development Division, working on U.S. government funded projects overseas. And I saw their cooperative development programs and I said, hey, I like that model. I think that's the way to go. I want to manage those. So I ended up managing those in my career there, and been with OCDC since I left Land O'Lakes, been with OCDC about 3 years now. Well, I'll get to that in one second. Let me go to the next slide. I'm totally copying an idea here. Last year, I spoke on a panel about the cooperative supply chain at the Global Innovation Co-op Summit. And the facilitator moderator there asked all of us to share photos of our profession and our passions to help us connect with the audience better as individuals. So I said, hey, what a brilliant idea. I think the ACE community would really like this as well. So I threw some slides up here. I am from Minnesota, so you will see some lakes in there and you will see some winter weather in Minnesota. I have a little fun giveaway here. If anyone can tell me where the photo in the upper right is from, get a little prize. Does anyone recognize that? The upper right. No.
Trade show.
Oh, so close. Ah, she got it. She got it. Say it louder.
I'll pass.
You'll pass it back. Okay, make sure she gets it. There'll be more opportunities. There'll be more opportunities.
There's a delivery fee, right?
If you want a different flavor, you'll just have to negotiate with somebody else who wins later. So Yes, that was a cooperative impact conference in the upper right last year. We co-sponsor OCDC international tract for one day of it. Working on planning for this year. Hope you'll all be there. The other photo is when I managed a project at Land O'Lakes. We did a research symposium in Rwanda. This is another conference photo. This was a dairy development project I worked on in Sri Lanka, pouring milk into vats. Minnesota with my daughter in her tree house out on the lake with my partner and our dogs, and my new fun, it's getting covered up right now. My new fun hobby is mountain biking, or really biking on trails outside, because I'm not very good. I'm just learning. So that's me. Who here is familiar with OCDC? Somewhat. Okay, good. If you know more than I do, feel free to speak up. Like I said, it's only been 3 years. I'm trying to cover 60 years of history here, right? I'll spend a lot of time, kind of the agenda today, I'll first spend a lot of time on the overview of OCDC, just to kind of ground you. I'm kind of talk fast through that. The main purpose is to talk about some samples of collaboration that our members have done, and then really want to be interactive. I don't want to talk the whole time, hoping that we can all have a discussion about collaborations you see or have been inspired to do. Next slide is acronyms. I think there's a few of them in the world, right? Maybe you'll remember some of these. CDO, Cooperative Development Organization. CDP is the Cooperative Development Program. That's a certain program funded by USAID, the one at the bottom, the U.S. Agency for International Development. We have ICA, the International Cooperative Alliance, International Cooperative Apex Body. ICRG, International Cooperative Research Group. And then OCDC is the U.S. Overseas Cooperative Development Council. So at a glance, yeah. Mostly independent. ICRG is an arm of OCDC, so I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, you're just going to hear me use the acronyms throughout. So I tried to spell them out, but I just know this stuff, so don't want the audience to get lost here. So OCDC at a glance, we're a member-based organization. We're not a cooperative ourselves. We're a 501c6, headquarters in Washington, D.C., right? I live in Minnesota. Remote work, right? Silver lining of COVID is our staff went fully remote. Our vision is a world where people in all countries have the opportunity to work together through cooperatives to create a better life for themselves and their communities. Our mission is to champion, advocate, and promote effective cooperative development. And you're gonna see that outlined in this presentation. Champion is through collecting the data and co-creating evidence-based research knowledge products, tools, and maintaining an online resource center. Advocating for greater appropriations from U.S. Congress and the administration, writing policy papers and holding forums and webinars, and promotion of our members through conferences, dissemination of our learnings, doing member spotlights, and other special campaigns. So here, just to give you a different voice to listen to, I'm gonna have just a short clip from Paul Hazen, our executive director, going a little bit over the history of OCDC.
Since the first co-op was organized in 1844 in Rockdale, England, it's always been about people helping people. So it's in our DNA to reach out and help people learn from what we've already experienced and then use that to improve their daily lives. So in 1961, the Foreign Assistance Act was passed by Congress, and throughout that bill, cooperatives are mentioned quite often. And the reason for that is that Midwestern members of Congress saw what cooperatives had done for rural America, agriculture cooperatives, savings and credit cooperatives, rural electric, rural telephone cooperatives, how they had rejuvenated rural America. And they said, we could use cooperatives in the developing world. So that was the start of the involvement in the U.S. cooperative movement in international development. And USAID, the agency, was formed by the 1961 Foreign Assistance Act, brought in the cooperative sector from the United States to advise them on how to organize. So that was the start of OCDC, and that was really the beginning of the US co-ops involved in the development world. Well, we're at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. OCDC has organized International Cooperative Development Research Group to conduct research in the development world about the impact.
Okay, I'm gonna start talking now. Sorry, it took me a minute to get that to pause. Gotta find my screen. Okay. Who here knows Paul Hazen? Okay, good. So I figured who better to talk about our history than Paul? This is our timeline here. As he mentioned, our history started 60 years ago. So the title of this session is 60 Years of Collaboration, because that's kind of where our origins and our roots go back to. Foreign assistance and core grants, like you mentioned, were given to U.S. cooperative organizations for them to work on global cooperative development. And then we've gone from there. OCDC was officially formed in 1982. We have had collaborative work through our membership since then. Hiring kind of a full-time executive director, that was about 2011, 2012. And the ICRG group, which is an acronym I mentioned before, that was our research arm. That was formalized in 2018. So the International Cooperative Research Group, they are our research arm, research and learning arm, should we say, for both OCDC and the U.S. Agency for International Development, Cooperative Development Program. They foster local partnerships, engaging stakeholders in co-creation and focusing on solutions and solution-oriented, policy-oriented action. They're turning data into actions that cooperative development workers can implement overseas. So ICRG's historical record includes over 69 distinct research projects or activities across 21 countries. They're elevating the uptake and impact of cooperatives internationally. The quote above is from their midterm evaluator from a recent USAID project, identifying the ICRG playing 6 unique critical roles in international cooperative development. So beyond just doing research, their impact as a connector, a knowledge generator, facilitator, capacity builder, whether you like the word or not, credibility booster, and policy influencer. So just a sample, right? I can't write all 69 research projects on here. Here's a sample of some of the research and tools. What difference do cooperatives make? So that is their seminal body of work. And it was a multi-year research project across 4 different countries that looked at the cooperative difference between cooperative members and non-members. This is the report right here. I have a few copies in the back if you're one of those who likes something in your hands to read. This is an overarching global report, but we have reports from each of the countries: Poland, the Philippines, Peru, and Kenya. Right now they're wrapping up a similar study in Central America. So it's kind of the same process, but also with the added lens of migration and looking at what difference cooperative membership makes in one's decision to migrate. Other research: women's economic empowerment in sub-Saharan Africa, climate finance for cooperatives, cooperative governance assessment tools, resilience tools, and also developing locally led white papers. That's another hard copy I have in the back of the room. And the Online Resource Center, which is a searchable database of curated tools about cooperative development overseas. The menu of services that they do, and they get contracts to do from our members and others, are landscape analysis, sector analysis, feasibility studies, gender analysis, looking at social networks, social capital, and looking at positive youth development in cooperatives, as well as supply chain analysis. So that's us. But the key to OCDC, we're a member-based organization. So I'm going to move on to our members now. Anyone who's familiar with us know, could they state one of our members? Yeah, tell us. ACDA vocal. Okay, do you want a spice or chocolate?
Equal share.
You want chocolate? Okay. Can I have my courier come back? Okay. Yeah. All right. So our members, they must have formal organizational linkages to U.S. cooperatives or cooperative trade associations, or be affiliated a nonprofit organization or cooperative themselves. All of our members are recipients of U.S. Agency for International Development funding under the Cooperative Development Program, CDP. Our membership has fluctuated, obviously, since we were formed. Right now, we have 10 organizational members. And they all the funding that they receive from USAID is competitively awarded through a grants RFP process. So our members, just a little, I mean, I can't capture everything they've done. We have 10 different members doing things in so many different countries. High level, they strengthen over 10,000 cooperatives and credit unions, representing more than 1 million households in over 35 countries. They've leveraged more than 150 million from US and local private sector partners. So that's leveraging or matching funds. And they proposed 42 new cooperative laws and regulations. So this screen shows the logos of all of our members. These are all our full members, full OCDC members, organizational members. I will go into each of them in detail in a minute. Before I do that, another pop quiz. There's only a couple more. Does anyone know the organization Co-operative? Could they tell me what Co-operative is? Co-operative. Has anybody heard of Co-operative? COCODEVI. I'm leaving you hanging. Okay. Drum roll. All right. Well, I'll come up with another question later to give out that one. I just thought there might be some Canadians in the house. So we have this brand new membership tier. It just got approved at our February board meeting. We are now open to associate members, and Co-operative is our first associate member. They are like our US-based members. They're a Canadian network of cooperative and mutual assistance enterprises that do cooperative development overseas. So probably a lot of their funding comes from the Canadian international development. I'm probably not always the microphone close enough. So that's our big news. Finally have a new tier, associate membership. So going back to our full-on members, they vary in structure and mission, right? So there are two that are categorized as international development organizations. That's solely what they do. So ACDA VOCA, so someone mentioned that name before, in global communities. So ACDA VOCA, they are a leading market systems practitioner. They address issues largely of food security, economic prosperity, social inclusion, looking at market solutions like cooperatives. Global communities, they are a development organization, but they focus more so on livelihoods of the most vulnerable through water, sanitation, nutrition, food security, governance and accountability projects overseas. Kind of the next tier of our membership, or category, I'd say, tier is not the right word, are cooperatives themselves. So equal exchange, the chocolate I brought to you today, yes, I have a few more bars to give out. There are worker-owned cooperatives selling coffee, chocolate, and more. So they use their cooperative development funding to help develop the source cooperatives where they source from. Frontier Co-op, they're another member. They do teas, spices, essential oils. Everyone familiar with Frontier, right? They work around the world and they sell their their products under 3 brands. Genex, cattle genetics supplier. Cooperative development programs are focused on building business-minded cooperatives addressing livestock challenges. Used to be CRI, now they're Genex URS. I'm a little bit familiar with them. We've partnered with them in the past on different projects. I worked at Land O'Lakes Venture 37, and that's when I partnered with Genex. So Land O'Lakes, they're a 501c3 nonprofit. They're a little bit hybrid because they're a nonprofit within Land O'Lakes. So they're under a cooperative themselves, but they're also a nonprofit that receives grants to international development funding. So they don't take their cooperative funding to do international programming. And industry associations, NCBA CLUSA, the primary voice in the United States for people who use cooperatives to build a better world through an inclusive economy. NRECA International, right, affiliated with where we are now. They work on expansion and access to commercial electric services. And World Council, or WOCU, the leading voice for advocacy and governance on behalf of the credit union community, SACCOs, financial cooperatives, whatever they're called in the country you're working at. And I didn't really know how to categorize them. Health partners. So they work to expand affordable health financing mechanisms. Largely, they've been in Uganda and Kenya, but they're the largest consumer-governed nonprofit healthcare organization in the United States. So they serve more than 1.5 million with medical and dental health plans nationwide. So origins as a cooperative, but they're not currently a cooperative. But very, very cool work. I'd love to talk about them and their work further. So these 10 members, they all come together under a collaborative umbrella. Their program staff, their cooperative development staff work together as USAID recipients. They are to collaborate, and OCDC is kind of the vehicle or the tool to help them collaborate, to share best practices, provide peer support and learning. The team comes together right now through Zoom via monthly meetings, and they do joint activities, including looking at cooperative law, early research initiatives, leadership training, amongst others. I know E.G. Nadeau is here. He's partnered with us in the past on some research projects, so he could talk too about some of the stuff he's led. That's a little bit of the overview. I'm going to get into some of the cases now of collaboration. The first one, so I mentioned cooperative law. We call it clarity. It's a mouthful. The Cooperative Law and Regulation Initiative. So it was created under this collaborative group, this working group of our members coming together to share their experiences operating development projects using outdated legal systems in other parts of the world. So this project launched in 2004. The goal was to develop a cooperative-led process for cooperative legal reform. It was a toolkit for cooperative leaders to use in country. It was designed to help them understand, analyze, and evaluate the cooperative law, develop proposals and strategies to create change, and put those proposals into action through advocacy and outreach activities. And lastly, to protect their rights and interests and bring about cooperative legal and regulatory reform, excuse me. I'm gonna hand it over to another video clip that's both going to talk about the collaborative group under OCDC as well as a project that practical use of the Clarity tool. So this is Rebecca Savoy when she was a cooperative director at NCBA CLUSA. Now happy to say she works at OCDC as a senior researcher, but she can say it so much better than I can. So give me 1 second. I don't know French very well.
Development OCDC is an entity that all the CDO members, the Cooperative Development Organization participated. So we have this requirement for collaboration, which is not always obvious, which is not always required in a lot of different types of procurement. Our QP project is in 5 countries. We're in Guatemala, Peru, Tanzania, Kenya, and Netherlands. And in each country, we've selected each country with intention, and we work in 3 general lines of work that align with the procurement that Emily had put out last year. And so first we said, you know, okay, how can we at NCBA CUSA really move the needle in, we say, clearing the lane and creating a pathway for cooperative development? How do we unlock some of those hurdles so others might invest in it, so private sector partners might be a little bit more interested in figuring out how to have that relationship with smallholders? We, and in that public space, in that public sector space, how can we do some of the work to create that kind of commercial environment for participation by the private sector and co-op? So we thought about, you know, looking at the way that NCBA CUSA has tackled this work for a long time. We came up with these ideas. So first, at the macro level, this project really looks at the enabling environment. Our hypothesis here is, if the national law indicates that assets of a cooperative can be seized without notification, it might be a little bit uncomfortable for an organization like Performance to do business with those co-ops. And so we have a tool that was developed by this OCDC group called the clarity analysis. And so we're looking at what are the enabling and disabling features of the cooperative law in each of these 5 countries. And then in each country, we're operationalizing that a little bit differently, but that information will help to unlock some of those potential hurdles for the cooperative in that enabling environment space. Sometimes we have in some places, like in Madagascar,
Okay. Right, she can say it better than I can. So that was initial launch of Clarity back in 2004. You know, so fast forward to 2024, times change, right? So over the course of 20 years or so, the tool had been utilized by governments, cooperatives, donors, implementing organizations, all to assess the regulations, identify areas of improvement, and address areas where it was possible. So I think the analysis was active in 15 countries. And some of them are successful in making cooperative law changes. So those countries include the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Ghana, Kenya, Madagascar, Mongolia, Mozambique, the Philippines, and South Africa. So as the tools were implemented, refinements were identified, which resulted in the creation of a Clarity, what we call a 2.0 working group. So this group of 17 cooperative law experts was facilitated by NCBA CUSA and the OCDC's ICRG group. They gathered, these experts from around the world, they gathered and identified some new and some previously identified issues in the legal reform environment. And ICRG will soon be releasing the customized Clarity 2024 toolkit. So 20 years later, still applicable, but with some tweaks to improve and make it more usable. So the second collaborative case I want to present here is a comparative case study. So this was a study done in partnership between Land O'Lakes Venture 37 and Gen X. They wanted to better understand the resilience of dairy and livestock cooperatives in Rwanda and Kenya. So they compared advantages and disadvantages of the cooperative model over privately owned businesses. This was largely done during the COVID time. Their results included recommendations they shared with governments, firms, co-ops, donors, and NGOs, right? So these organizations are co-op development firms They don't necessarily have a research arm like OCDC does, so they partnered with OCDC's ICRG group, did some case analysis on their own to benefit their cooperative development program. The third case I'm going to bring up, what did I go for? I went for it too many times. The Eureka Hub. So global communities, NCBA CLUSA, and World Council came together on a project to design a platform for Kenya cooperatives to share information. Okay, I'm going to throw in a quiz question here. Does anyone remember what kind of cooperatives World Council supports? Okay, yeah. Wow. You already got one right now. Chocolate's half gone. All right. Kathy was looking at me like winking, like she knows. World Council
Association.
of I don't have a product from them to give away. I don't, well, I've had money, you know. World Council, World Council. Somebody just come up and get some mint and share it around. All right, I don't know who it is. Somebody just share it out. All right.
What's the answer?
World Council of Credit Unions.
Credit union.
Yoo-hoo! I knew you knew
it.
it. You might have. This might eat my hearing, right? I don't know. Yeah, share some.
Yeah.
Equal exchange, I tell you. Well, I bring up this example. Well, okay, first let me explain it a little bit more. So they did a systems analysis using their partner Root Change. They brought together cooperative partners in the Kenyan cooperative community for interactive sessions, right? Looking at what their networking needs were and evaluating potential platforms for the Kenyan cooperative stakeholders to gather virtually. I mentioned this as Eureka Hub. I think it was on past slides. So that means cooperative in Swahili, right? Maybe I should have made it a quiz. So the analysis had them create this hub, which is online hub. Well, it didn't work. So I think one of the things they learned was, hey, it was really great to bring everyone together, to hear the voices, to hear what the needs were, but creating a new platform, it didn't have the uptake. They created this thing that people weren't using. And what they found out later was it was just one more platform for people to use, right? You have WhatsApp, you have Facebook, you have LinkedIn, you have text messaging. And so with all this great knowledge, this networking that was done, this pulling people together, Global Communities is now going to pivot that. They're taking that feedback, and they're going to put the platform on Facebook or LinkedIn in their next phase. They're using a tool that everybody already uses, taking the knowledge that was already generated, taking the momentum, taking the connections, and pivoting to make it work. So that's why I chose that one, because it shows, you know, things don't always come out as you want them to come out, but can make the change. And last video now, so there's one project, it was a Global Communities project that's taken us Eureka Hub to the next level. The woman here, she is their policy and legislative affairs specialist based in Kenya. So she's going to speak both about the Clarity project I talked about, as well as the Eureka Hub, the Clear project. Let me just find the right YouTube.
Hi, my name is Olga Weir. I'm the Policy and Legislative Affairs Specialist from Global Communities Care Program. CARE program stands for the Cooperative Leadership Engagement, Advocacy and Research. The overall aim is to improve livelihoods and to see how we could influence the Kenyan legal system within the cooperative sector. We do this by structuring the program in three main pillars. The first pillar is the enabling environment pillar. whereby we have a target of about 25 counties to reach. The cooperative function was devolved in Kenya through the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Fast forward to 2019, only about 4 to 5 counties have their legislation in place. None of them have policies yet at county level. And so that's where the CLEAR program interventions come in at the right time to try and support enhancing this enabling environment in the counties. We also provide hands-on technical support to cooperatives, cooperative business enterprises, primarily in the housing and service subsectors within the cooperative. So we have a target of about 15 service and housing cooperatives to reach within the life of the program. And we do this using the Cooperative Performance Index. And finally, we provide a support system to the cooperative sector using the USAID collaboration, learning and adaptation approach by making sure that we get all the stakeholders in the room and keep talking on what the issues are and leveraging each other's strengths across the sector. Global Communities believes in cooperative development, and passionately so believes in cooperative development, because that's where the impact is. That's where you can reach and actually improve livelihoods.
No offense, but if you still think stocks.
So. All right, Olga's pretty awesome, isn't she? I'm going, I should hold it the right way. All right, so that was the third example of collaboration I wanted to share. Moving on to the fourth one. One of the downfalls of pivoting from Canva to PDF is this was a GIF. Like this was a moving in, but you can see that. You'll see it on the next slide. You'll see it on the next slide. So I worked since joining OCDC on a collaborative project with the International Cooperative Alliance and their Co-ops for Dev team. So we created an online platform with information on our members, both OCDC's members and ICA's Cooperative Development Organization members. So the site contains info on over 420 international projects that have operated since 2020. The platform is called MyCDP, which is an abbreviation of Mapping International Development Programs, or actually projects. And these are some snippets of the site. So there's a logo there that kind of got cut off on the last slide. The site has a searchable map where one can find international development projects by sectors, by SDG, by country, and by CDO. So in addition to the project information, the Cooperative Development Organization information, there's also some basic statistics such as funding levels. And so here's the map that you can search. Here's just a snippet of some of the members. Those are all members of ICA that do international development work. So I'm constantly referring people to this site. People are always wondering, oh, who's working in Georgia doing cooperative development? I'm like, well, here's a site you can look at and see. So encourage you to, explore that if you're interested, or share with other people. It's a kind of a best kept secret. So after listening to these examples, right, I don't like talking. I want to know what resonates with you. I promise to make this an interactive session, and it's just me talking. So taking P6, right? Now it's your turn. Think about, has any collaborative idea come to mind while at ACE or while listening to this session? I'll tell you, I started to write like at least 3 different ideas I've had since just listening to the sessions today of how I can pursue greater cooperative to cooperative development. So maybe first I'll throw that question out there, and then we'll go on to the second question. If you want the mic, I can pass it, but if you don't, just stand up and shout it out. We're a small enough group. Kathy!
I'll use the mic.
Oh,
ran summer camps for 30 years, so I can project. And I also recognize that sometimes folks have impairments that make it not just have volume, but clarity. So that's my little soapbox for folks who are like, I don't need the mic. I'm like, use the mic.
Ah,
So something that occurred to us over lunch, a conversation over lunch, was there's kind of this constant refrain in cooperative meetings about how we need more people to know what co-ops are, which is sort of a call for cooperative education, which is why we're all here, right?
okay.
And it's what occurred to us is, and this is not a surprise, I'm sure to any of you, that it's really a lot of little things that need to happen to advance greater awareness of what cooperatives are out in the greater world. And that this space, the ACE space, might be a great place to try to be more intentional about capturing the ways we do that, knowing it's not a one size fits all. Right? So there's an absence of co-op education happening in business schools and MBA programs. Who's suited to tackle that, and what progress can we make, and what are some things we can actually benchmark? Some of us, like me, started learning about co-ops in the farmers union when we were 6, right? So where does youth education fall, and how can we advance and leverage some of that? What about folks in industry? You know, what about folks in academia? So being kind of intentional about capturing it, and recognizing that it's going to be not just one solution, it's going to be lots of little things. And then just actually figuring out how we document that. Because right now I think it's sort of nebulous, right? We know academics are doing stuff, we know that Farmers Union is doing their youth co-op thing. Where do we go from there? So it looks like Esther has a direct response. You have something else. Okay, so that's how.
Go.
Esther West.
Sure.
Just I don't want to come like that. So yeah, I'm Esther, and I'm at Shared Capital Cooperative. Christina and Ashley, and I'm a loan officer now. And before this, I started about a year and a half ago. And before this job, I did cooperative education development organizing. And I gotta say, suddenly people like perk up a lot more when you have money to give them. Weird. I guess like the collaborative point in line with what you're talking about is like feel free to invite us to like your workshops or meetings or like some activity, because like we want to like support co-ops through our loans. We are a comfort zone. So you know, we're here to like get the word out, get the money going for co-ops, and so it's a powerful partnership, I think.
Okay, I'm adding that to my list. Here, go for it.
Because it is Pride Month. Thinking a lot about like relationship agreements and boundary agreements, and that's like what a cooperative system is. Constantly going over those agreements and like what do equitable boundaries look like, and what do like how much is one person willing to give and share. So there's a lot of resources and books about boundaries and like in terms of relationships, and I think that's one kind of like guerrilla way that cooperative values are showing up in spaces that aren't explicitly cooperative based. Questions about what non-monogamy looks like and non-traditional type of like ingrained capitalist systems that show up in our personal relationships. Give a lot of book recommendations.
Go for it. I think there's a WhatsApp chat. Use it, share, collaborate. What other examples of collaboration resonate with you? Well, you guys are thinking on that too. I'm also the board. Oh, okay. All right, I'll share. Okay.
I'm Ashley. So to answer the question, what collaborative do you undertake to benefit your cooperative or the cooperative environment? I'm presenting on Thursday about mindfulness, and I just thought about how I worked with Adrian, my capstone co-partner, on
being collaborative and what does that mean? And so that brought us to being mindful and being present with one another. So more on that on Thursday, but what I wanted to say today was like being mindful and present with one another is being collaborative and cooperative with one another. Thank you.
Thank you. All these good examples. I'm a doer. I like to talk big things, but I like to make things happen. All right, let's make these partners happen. Yeah.
We could do something like a workshop or a flyer or go around where we each like share our favorite co-op and like that we can like support like directly with Facebook or any coaching. You know, it's like a great opportunity to just like share this exciting product with people, and it's all fair trade and small farmer based, and you know, maybe you have your favorite co-op, and so you know, just highlighting even just as consumers, we can, whether it's from our co-ops we were or consumer.
You and then all right. Hello.
When we had ACE in Puerto Rico last year, we went on a tour of a coffee co-op. And at Spartan Housing Co-op, I'm the person that buys the coffee. So that is now the coffee that we have.
What's the name of it?
Café Cibales.
Café Cibales. Okay, good. Kathy behind you on it. Yeah.
I was just going to share too that some have already heard me speak about, but being that, and I think maybe most people in the room know this now, but that the United Nations has named 2025 as the International Year of Cooperatives. We should really be leveraging that, talking about that, figuring out how we advance that. But two ways that we can do that and that are really like lifts. That also give us a chance to sort of collaborate with other cooperatives and lift up the cooperatives in our local communities are through two organizations that a lot of folks are familiar with, but don't necessarily engage with intentionally as cooperatives. One is Rotary. So Rotary clubs, right? I'm a Rotarian. Rotary is an international organization. Rotary International and the International Cooperative Alliance are two of less than 200 global organizations that have consultative status with the UN. So there's a very natural linkage between Rotary clubs and what cooperatives are doing. If you want to make the case around sustainable development goals, around around sort of community economic development, et cetera, et cetera. As a past Rotary Club president, I know those Rotary Club presidents who are taking office in July are thinking, I need to come up with 40-some programs because most Rotary Clubs meet every single week and they have a speaker every single week. So now's the time to snag October with all the service clubs you can think of, Rotary, Kiwanis, Lions, whomever, you can make a direct link, especially with Rotary, to the UN, because they're also a consultative member. They have consultative status rather, just like the NCA, around the year of cooperatives, but then use that as a way to also bring attention to the cooperatives in those communities where Rotary's in just about every big and small city, right? So you can say, and, right, there are the international examples, and then there's the Ag Co-op, the credit union, the rural electric, that are right here in town, that are, also that same model. So the second organization that you can do that with is Chambers of Commerce. Many established cooperatives are members of the local chamber, but they don't necessarily leverage that chamber cooperative connection. So again, many of them have network events, pick October and say, we're not going to just highlight our own cooperative during this chamber networking event. We're going to use it to lift up all the co-ops and credit unions who are members of the Chamber of Commerce, and the cooperation to national cooperatives, and do it in spaces that are kind of traditional business spaces that don't always know about co-ops or don't always make the linkages between the different kinds of co-ops and their communities. There's that. And for Lou answering me, that's
we are talking
now at all the conferences we've been at together. But
I'll talk with Kathy. We're like all these ideas and like we're gonna make things happen, right? But I'll talk to you about Rotary too, because okay. Love everything you said. Yes. Okay, and in the collaborative spirit, so there's one last candy bar, so I figure we can share it. So you had to break it. I was told I have to wrap up at 4 o'clock. I would love for somebody to said we want to partner with OCDC or your research group, but that's okay. You can still think on it. I would say one thing that I learned that was like mind blowing too. Like I was in the housing session earlier today, so I'm also I think I didn't mention this, on the board of a credit union, my credit union. I'm like, credit unions, financial institutions, why aren't we helping fund housing cooperatives? So like, yeah, I'm gonna take that as an act item and go back and work on that, but there's always so much collaboration. Anyone else have anything burning to say or questions? Otherwise, okay, go ahead.
Collaboration with OCDC, this is a direct response to them. Oh,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna use the mic, even
Clarity.
though I can project. I worked for a short time in international development, and I was really struck by how little conversation there is between domestic community development, cooperative development, and international cooperative and community development. And I really do still think that while there are some differences, certainly, there also is a lot to be learned and a lot of places for challenges. So yeah, I wonder what opportunity there might be to have some dialogue about fundamental principles that are used, where there could be conversation back and forth to challenge each other to deepen our work. Yeah, you guys already had that conversation, of course.
No. No, it's all good stuff. Like education is also on my list. I don't want to talk anymore. Somebody else has to talk.
I just want to uplift that. I think we've had this conversation kind of briefly on OCDC ACE. What are the opportunities, you know, to collaborate and share, as Christina was saying, across the international imaginary boundaries? I won't call them imaginary because they're not really drawn, they're just politically drawn and whatnot. But is the tools, resources, or just the exchange, you know? Because even with ACE, we're looking at international, but we are international in a sense because we are Canada and the Caribbean as well, you know, but there's like, there's a disconnect from some of the, we do get some funding through some of the domestic organizations that are involved in the international cooperative development, but that's also limited. But I think it could really strengthen the co-op ecosystem for individuals, educators, developers, et cetera, to experience beyond our borders in order to bring back those learnings back into our communities and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm going to ask the question again. What does it look like? And that's not a question to answer now, but like, what does that what does that collaboration look like for the educational community and development community here domestically and internationally? What can we do as a takeaway as ACE and OCDC beyond this conference? We have you here now.
I know what I want to do. I'm super passionate about doing some education programs overseas for the cooperative professional who stumble upon cooperative development, but they don't know. They need the governance training. They need this, they need that. And there's so many different training things out there. IFC has one. You know, Cooperation Works has great training tools, and people can't afford to come to St. Mary's, but what kind of cooperative training can we do? Whether you got language, you got, that's what I want to do. I'm so passionate about that.
Okay, and so you say that even down to the
I'm looking for funding. I'm looking for funding.
Right. We're all looking for funding. So maybe we have to look for collaborative. Yes. Maybe it's ACE and OCDC saying, hey, you know, we're going to shift the dynamics of. I'm making a marketing pitch.
I'll share with you my one pager.
Yeah, but I think there's something in it.
Yeah.
And I think it is a funding thing, but it's also part of that accessibility piece is the access to funding, capital. So even as far as some of the CW trainings, but in addition to the St. Mary's training, is like there's this gap of accessibility as well, even for folks just to come to this conference. You know, there's a gap in accessibility, and so it's like, how do we make the domestic and the international education and development kind of feed each other and then feed the ecosystem at the same time? That's my.
I love it.
Sorry to put you on.
No, hold me to it. You know, Paul, talk to him too. You want it?
There's lots of mentions that, like, you know, like the Inflation Reduction Act, about $27 billion just came out for climate justice, so climate change, so maybe we can partner on applications or different agencies, so it's not just one agency, it's like through multiple. Just an idea that we.
I love all ideas. That's my email. There's some QR codes to our website, to join our mailing list from our website. You can get to our research group. I am a networker. I love to connect. I love to partner. I love to make things happen. So email me, talk to me. I'm an extrovert. I work alone at my house. So I love to have chats with anybody.
We have a co-working space in Minnesota if you ever want to co-work. So get out the house and meet up at the.
I would. That would be great. You know. You might regret that. You might regret that.
Plan for the next week.
That'd be great. I don't really have anything else unless I got two spice jars here. Let's see. Pizza seasoning. This is Frontier Co-op red chili pepper. All right. Red chili pepper. Come on, get it. Come and get it.
You might want the pizza. What did I even ask?